and how you got out of it, and give with the intention to actually help other people to realize that pain is a springboard, and that, you know, is a is a highly motivating, highly, transformational process that we have to trust actually over the period of that time. So it's kind of it's massively inspiring to hear about other people's transformational journeys, I think, especially when you're in the middle of your own pain and you don't see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, I entirely agree. And I think that's, I think I said I'd written a book, and that's what for me was the heart of that, was sharing my own experience, because you can't fake it, like somebody knows if you've been through it. And I think that has a huge impact on people who are listening and in desperation themselves, and feelingly stuck in the experience they're having. And when you know it's possible to go beyond that, and that actually the thing you're resisting, like you've said, is the thing that can actually be the greatest gift, the greatest motivator, and the hugest gifts are hidden within that experience. For me, I think that's enlivening for us and inspiring for people to want to go for it themselves, to want to actually, and sometimes it's just giving them hope, isn't it? That like there is possibilities here. You're not stuck. There's not narrowed down to one or no solutions. There are many, and for me, it's not about curing anything. And you might have found the same yourself. It's actually, to heal means to become whole. And for me, it's all about recognition, becoming more alert and aware to what's actually going on, so you can make a choice. So you have a choice. So you have a different experience, actually. Sometimes the pain just goes, and other times, it lingers a little bit. And other times still, you change your relationship to it. So like probably the clearest example for that for me was having changed my relationship with long-term chronic pain. My ribs were broken in quite a dramatic way as well. So there was a massive emotional component. I was beaten. So it was actually a traumatic experience by a close family member, not my husband. It was traumatic from the emotional point of view. So I was kind of dealing with all of that, but also the physical pain. And I have asthma, so like I couldn't breathe. You feel so winded, you just can't move. I couldn't lie down, so I was having to sleep up in bed for 5-6 weeks before it healed enough.
How long ago this started? How long ago? When was it? So I don't know your background story. So maybe we just start with that.
Yeah, maybe that might be helpful, actually. The broken ribs happened in 2014.
Okay.
But originally, I started the long-term chronic pain journey really after I had my second child, and he's 18 now, and it happened in the pregnancy, so about 19 years ago. Maybe, in 3 months of pregnancy.
Wow, you don't look old enough to have a 19-year-old boy or daughter.
He's my youngest.
Amazing. Okay, this is often very common as well during pregnancy. I actually had a total flare-up during just after pregnancy, and it makes sense. So 19 years ago it started. What happened? What was the initial pain?
Yeah, so it started with the hormones of pregnancy changing. So it's a symphysis pubis joint at the front of the pelvis, which softens and opens for birth, to let the baby's head pass through. And so that happened at 3 months of pregnancy. Right. And so initially it was just like aches and pains in my right hip and in that joint area and in sort of the top of my right leg. It's all on the right side, actually. And so, that just, I remember complaining to my midwife, and she was just like, oh, you've had a baby already, you get aches and pains. And I'm like, yeah, but not like this. But being the good girl, I was just like, okay, I'm just,
deal with it.
On board, you just get these aches and pains. And then at about 30 weeks of pregnancy, my legs just gave way and I couldn't walk anymore. So, at that point, they then said, you should have said something earlier, which was obviously very frustrating because it's like, I did. But I think I'm a person of extremes, so I went from saying something to not daring to say anything because I've been shut down, and that's the trouble, isn't it? When we are shut down, we do internalize everything. I'm very good at internalizing it, and that's I think when pain can develop, and so so I was on crutches, stumbling around on crutches, dragging my heavy pregnant body, which wasn't easy, and then you know, everything happened quite soon. I kept going into labour because of the weight of the baby's head pushing on something that wasn't holding. So yeah, and then after I had him, it went back together twisted. I had at about 7 months, I started getting osteopathy to, you know, untwist it. And so it was untwisting, and then it went a little bit the other way, and then it pulled apart and wouldn't go back together again. And now I was left not being able to walk again. And so for me, it's going through the not being able to walk, which is, you know, with 2 young children, incredibly difficult. But that was when the really severe pain started. You know, I remember somebody saying when I was pregnant, "Oh, wow, that's a really painful condition, a rare and painful condition." I'm like, "I'm not really in any pain. I just can't walk, you know, it's a bit inconvenient really." And then it started to go round to my back. And so the pain just seemed to just spread and spread and spread. So my entire pelvis was, you know, front, left, right, back, then up the back. You know, the middle part of my back then became very painful and rigid, and it's actually twisted if you want to look at the structure of it. I know I went for massage a few years later, and the massage therapist literally went, "Oh my God." And I'm like, "What?" And it's because it was so pushed over my spine. She was so kinky. She'd never seen anything like it before. And
Scoliosis or the rotation of the spine?
Both. So
Okay.
so it's left to right, front to back twisted, and it's also on its spine. So I mean, it's probably as much as that's why it probably looks probably quite dramatic. I then after that took a picture of it, and I'm like, yeah, because you don't know, it's my back. I didn't know what it looked like, so it is was quite dramatic. It's not as bad now, because working with changing your relationship with that experience, and I learned to meditate in 2000, so this would have been, he was born in 2003.
Right.
So it started in 2003, and then I learned the meditation practice that Ali, you might know her as, and I know her as Carly. We have a meditation name. Meera is my meditation name. Sally Page is my birth name.
Okay.
And so I learned that in 2010.
2010.
Yeah.
So it's many years, like 7 years of
going through this,
pain.
yeah, and basically, like if you look at my book, you can read the first few chapters, so I don't need to go into too much detail. You can read, you know, I reached rock bottom basically, and didn't want to live anymore. The level of pain was so bad. It was just like, you know, nobody seemed to understand, and people weren't supporting me in that. Basically, something happened that meant, right, that's it, I've had enough, I can't do this anymore, nobody cares, there's no point in being here, you know. And I won't explain what happened, you can read that in the book, but it's it led to a transcendent experience in the middle of that, where, and sometimes I think we have to reach rock bottom to surrender everything that we're doing right now. You just give up, you can't do it anymore, you can't keep going with the patterns, and we don't even recognize that they are patterns of thinking, patterns of behaving, patterns of reaction. And so, yeah, within that, I just surrendered, and I had a really, exalted experience, I suppose you might say, that was just very pure, and very still, and very profound and expansive. And yeah, that then got my curiosity, actually. It obviously calmed everything down in that moment. And yeah, even the thought of dying was just like, well, you know, it just wasn't even there. It wasn't, oh, I feel all right now, I want to live. There was just like, no, it just completely went. And it gave me a renewed sense of determination and passion to find a way to heal this, you know, because I'd hobbled to even get to where I was to do something. And it involved my son as well, you know. So it's like the purity of young children reminds us, I think, of who we truly are, you know, that which is looking out through our eyes. As the body is how it is, we are that which is aware of how the body is. And so I started exploring, and that led to lots of physical solutions, like wearing a support belt, which held it together a little bit, things like that. But more importantly, it led to a sort of a spiritual search, and just kind of a knowingness that I experienced there's more to life in the middle of, you know, extreme angst and trauma. So what's possible day in, day out, it's got to be possible. And so, yeah, I started doing lots of different workshops. Once I got to a stable enough state. I received Reiki treatments that helped me physically. Within 6 months, I was walking again with that. And so then I could start to do stuff. So lots of different workshops, reading masses of books even before I could do the workshops. So I was exploring, you know, and things like the power of now and all these things. And but they spoke of them and they didn't really give you a way to access that. So I was getting excited, I was getting inspired by, right, but yeah, come on then, yeah, I want this. How do I do this?
The practical things were not in place, or let's say, yeah, the habits that we need to create, you know, to put them into our lives. Yeah, I agree totally.
Yeah, so I just kept searching, and you know, within that search, I then started swapping books with other excited workshop participants that were doing some of the similar workshops that I was attending, and everyone was amazing. But I kind of you get like that workshop high, you know, you go, you have an amazing time, you're really inspired, it lasts about a week and then it's gone, and then you're like, now what? You know, so you get like a workshop junkie, you got to write the next one and the next one. And I kind of, that was great. And then I just got to a point where it's just like, but that's not helping my everyday life. Nothing much is changing, little incremental changes, but not much. I'm like, I want more. And I was lent this book called First Thunder by MSI, Maharishi Sadashiva Isham. And it's a novel, a story about how he learned the Ascension techniques. And it's a
First Thunder. It's called First Thunder.
First Thunder, yeah, by MSI.
MSI.
And yeah, some people will say not a very well written novel, but it's almost just like it's got so much truth and purity threaded throughout the pages. You feel it. You know, if you're looking and you're ready, you feel it. And so I'm like, there's something in this. I'd already kind of ruled out the idea of meditation because I'd tried so many different ways and not been able to. So I'm like, you know, that's not for me. I can't stop my mind. So no. But there was something about this that I just didn't even think of it as meditation. And in a way, it's way beyond meditation. It's a much the techniques are so pure and so clear, and they're mechanical. So you don't have to have any belief that they'll work or visualize or do anything else other than use them. And so, yeah, eventually I came across a workshop that I could learn these at. And the minute I was there, Joanna, it was just like I felt I was home. It's like the search ended, but yet the adventure began, and it was incredible. I was told I'd be a teacher when I learned. And, you know, I was terrified at the idea of that and laughed at the people who said that to me. And yet here I am, you know.
Oh, you're teaching it now. Okay, great.
Yeah. So that was in 2010. In 2012, I became a teacher of it. It very quickly changes your experience. And so all those little mental blocks that you say no to life kind of get stripped away. All of the little anchor points that mean you act a certain way, speak a certain way, have the filters of the mind that you see the world a certain way. All of those get stripped away naturally, effortlessly and easily. And so you start to become empowered. You start to feel like there's more that's possible. I got excited about what was possible, and I'm still excited. I'm more excited now actually than I was then, because I've seen what's possible, and the changes don't stop. They keep coming. And that for me is exciting. It's enlivening. And so I'm still on the journey in my own experience. I'm in no pain now, no long-term physical pain, but that also led to the experience. So I graduated in 2012, and 2014 was when I was beaten and my ribs were broken. And so I think for me, the long-term chronic pain just got addressed by the Ascension techniques. As I practiced them, the patterns just fell away. Couldn't even tell you how. They fall away without you even recognizing what's happening. I mean, there's some times where you kind of have to step through, you know, there's a little bit of a resistance, and you kind of got to step through a comfort zone or out of a comfort zone to enable the growth to happen, enable the stress release and all the parameters that we have that hold us in a very limited view of life to fall away. And then lo and behold, I'm beaten and my ribs are broken, and I'm in this pit of despair and you know, extreme pain, and it's acute pain now. So like, well, this is different, obviously, because if you've got trauma, you know, it's going to be painful, isn't it? ? And so I'm like, well, but maybe not. Let's, you know, I think being curious is so important. And I'm a very curious person, and that has served me so well. Like, I never take anything as a final answer. Like, is there another way, or is more even possible? Even if something good is happening, is more possible? And so yeah, I started to explore what I'd learned, with just starting to become attentive to the body, and recognizing that the mind's dialogue tells you how you're experiencing your body. And so in paying attention, which I was quite practiced at doing, on the site of the injury, because it was being beaten rather than one clean break, it was all across the front of my ribs and around the sides. And so I was just watching. And in that moment, it's just like everything softened and opened up to quite a profound experience of just everything being really still and quiet, and yet expansive and wide and serene. Yeah, it was a beautiful experience, actually. And then it's like you go into another operating mode, you know. So I was kind of like tensed against all the pain before, and then it's just like everything just softened and relaxed. And so I still obviously had the break, that it's not like there was still something that was damaged, yet my relationship with the damage completely changed, instantly changed as well. Not a process, an instant, moment by moment choice. And not only did the pain completely go away, like it wasn't painful at all. I could be aware of the sensation where the broken and the cracked bits were. I could feel that, but it wasn't painful, and there was absolutely no suffering. The secondary pain, we often call suffering pain, and that secondary pain of suffering that we call suffering is never necessary. It's, in my experience, and you probably know that yourself, it's never necessary, is it? And so it's just recognizing that that's the case. And so I was so pure and open with the condition, you know, with the broken ribs in that moment, that there was no judgment of, oh, you know, this shouldn't have happened, or how long is this going to last, or oh my God, I can't do anything, blah blah. All that whole story that was wrapped around what I was experiencing fell away in that moment. And so it was a very pure, clear experience, devoid of thought, and just open and expansive. And the amazing thing with that, not only was there no pain or suffering, but there was also a greater level of movement in my body. So like I'd been kind of like this, you know, going to get a drink and like can't move, and you know, and it was just like, go and get my drink.
Fear, right.
And it's just like, oh my goodness, like my body's like, I've got broken ribs, and I can just, you know, and then I kind of like danced back and forth between the two, because once you say it's possible, but the thing is, it's not always sustainable, because the habit is so strong, you know, to narrow down, to think about it, to resist against it. And resistance causes the suffering, as you possibly already know yourself. And so it's learning that initially as a concept, and then it's learning how to make that your living experience that makes the greatest changes
Absolutely
in your life.
Yeah. Beautiful story. Wow. So many things I want to ask, but I'm not quite sure where to start. So basically I have a couple of series of questions that I would like to ask you. One that would help me kind of frame it in a way that the way that I teach it, so that I can help people in, you know, form a kind of structure, because it's really important to have this, it's important to get it mentally, but it's more important to get it viscerally and more, you know, embody it, right? So there's a kind of a series of things that I would like to ask in order for us to help others experience it, but put it into practice in their daily lives, because you were talking about that before, right? That you didn't get it until you actually were able to change the, you know, I call them habit building for painless living. So in the sense that we're building, you know, mental, emotional, physical, you know, holistic habits, changing them in order to live into our pain, so that we're not we're not resisting, we're not restricting, we're open to you know, to being a curious kind of state of mind. All those things that you said resonated with me completely. And but it's actually putting them in, like, it's really nice to hear that, you know, open and you know, like non-resistant or whatever, but in practice, what does that actually mean, right? So were there some the shift, you talked about the shift. So the shift came when you realized that the possibility was, you know, that there was endless possibility, or that you had a possibility that this was all being constructed somehow in your mind and in your, so meditation, or this process, you became a monk. Is that you became a monk with as Ali, right? So you had this, is this the workshop you're talking about that changed your life? Is that what you were talking about? Right. Okay, just to clarify there. And that was just the process of understanding that we're kind of all restricted. We restrict ourselves basically, and suffering is the second layer of the event and our reaction to the event, which creates the outcome. And so if we can actually stop the reaction of that to that event happening, then we can actually uncouple and create our own outcome, basically, right? So I'm just seeing if it kind of fits in with what I'm understanding and what I've understood so far. So the shift came when you became more curious, more open. Were there any like habits apart from meditation? So you did meditation, but meditation, as I understood from Ali, is that it's not just sitting down and going, you know, like mindfulness. It's actually mindfulness throughout the day. And is that right? Is that correct?
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, the first instruction is kind of akin to mindfulness, but then we have the techniques that are mechanical that kind of harmonize the way our brain works, so it kind of gets that coherence in the brain, and then it's directed towards a root stress, and there's a series of techniques, so they all work together to address all those different habits that we've built up, you know, all the false beliefs actually about who we are and how we interact with the world, and what the world is actually. So it just deconstructs it all, really, in my experience. So
to do with self limiting beliefs about, and the fact that we create the beliefs, or we are given the beliefs, and then we never even question whether the beliefs should be there or not, and then we, you know, go through life believing those beliefs are real, and our beliefs are basically confiding or putting the structure there. So if we change our beliefs, then we can change the structure. Is that correct? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and we're not, in my experience with Ascension, you're deconstructing the belief system, so you can actually come back to the pure experience of just operating without any constructs dictating how we live, how we feel, how we see, how we hear. And so you're not taking on a new belief system, you're actually going beyond, you're transcending any type of belief system, so you can actually always have a pure, clear experience. And so that's often what we do, is like with the other workshops, I was kind of making incremental changes by changing my belief system, by changing my approach, and that works. It does have an impact. But there's so much more available to us, and continues to be available to me, you know, like that's why I said I'm still excited, like what else is actually possible, you know. At the moment it feels like my body, I'm able to walk and I'm in no pain, but there's still twisting in my spine, there's still friction in my right hip, there's tension, and I'm actually starting to become aware of, almost like, you know, when with the fight and flight response that we go through, it's like arms and legs. It's like so much has landed up in my arms and legs, and at the moment all of that is just dissolving. The tension is all softening and relaxing every time I practice the Ascension techniques, which I do 3 times a day, you know. So it's almost like letting that process happen, going beyond the way I'm used to operating, so I can keep accessing this other operating mode that's pure and free of all thought, free of all instruction, actually, so we can experience purely and clearly. And that for me is what then enables the body to be freer. You know, when the mind is clearer, the body then gets a chance to release all the stress. Because in truth, we can sit on the sofa or in a chair or on a bed, and we can lie down and we can relax. But if we don't quieten the mind, we're never fully relaxed. You know, and actually the Ascension techniques are a way to access that highest level of alertness with the deepest level of rest, you know, so that your body is able to do more and heal itself and work efficiently if the mind is completely still. You're just accessing that completely deep level of rest, so the body can heal, and it will heal. And then thoughts will arise, because movement in the body with the mind-body connection create thoughts in the mind. And so we work with everything with Ascension. We work with the natural tendencies of the mind and the body. We're never trying to stop the thinking. You can't actually stop thoughts. They'll always come. You change your relationship with them so that they no longer dictate how, you no longer believe them. You no longer
exactly. I was just about to say,
no longer
it's just like
with them.
Yeah. You're just watching them go past, and that's another train, that's another train of thought, that's another train of thought. Instead of jumping on every train that comes by, you can say, well, actually, I choose to avoid that one, or I choose to leave that one to go on its way, So yeah, I use that very often as an analogy, because it's very helpful to remember that our beliefs and our thoughts are, our feelings and our thoughts are signposts, but we don't have to jump on every single one of them, or take the signpost as, read, or, as a, oh my God, this is the moment, So that's beautiful. I would love to hear more, and also perhaps, do a kind of, a mini workshop or something with some of my clients as well. That would be really, really helpful. If you're up for that and willing to do something like that.
I would love to do that. I want to help more people, access more people, and just, show them what is possible. Actually, instantly as well. I sometimes do one-to-ones or work with the people who've already learned the Ascension techniques, because once you've learned Ascension, it releases everything you're holding on to. And sometimes when there's a lot releasing at once, it can be a bit unsettling and destabilizing, which is why we actually always provide ongoing guidance, so that when that happens, we can actually help guide people back to the actual pure experience and choose, follow the instruction. Typically the mind will then come in and complicate the instruction, and so you're actually not using it most effectively. And so if we can do that with people who haven't got the Ascension techniques, like, you don't need to have those to be able to change it, that, because you've changed your relationship with pain, and you've gotten to the point where you've found ways to help people with that. I think that's amazing.
Yeah, and
it's share that with the world.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think it's very it's there's so many things I want to say, but I think it's very interesting that we've kind of come to the same conclusions, or similar, let's say, because I can't be 100% sure until I experience the process. But what I've understood is, like, we have our nervous system is constantly in a choice. Like, we are in either a fight, flight, freeze mode, or we're in a more calm, serene, curiosity, peace, harmony state, and they cannot be together. So therefore we have to, it's a constant choice, and and that state can be helped, or let's say when the mind comes in, because you said you cannot stop the mind, I agree completely. So it's just about increasing the muscle of the other side of us, which is the serene, the quiet, the peace, the curiosity, the open state, so that we can actually, rather than building the muscle of the fight, flight, freeze, stress, compress, depress, which is all pushing in, and all the illness is actually because of that, right? So we're in a chronic fight, flight, freeze system, actually. And this is what I'm talking about to my clients as well, that it's very much, we have to have strategies and habits, and first of all be aware of this, but then actually incorporate things into our lives that reduce the anxiety, the stress in our lives, right? And that's from turning off the television, to turning off the pings on our phone, to creating habits of relaxation or mindfulness, or throughout the day, as well as obviously yoga and meditation and movement and things like that. But it's very interesting hearing how that can, there's other systems, obviously there's many systems about how to actually incorporate that into your life. And you have a system that you create. You said that you you do 3 times a day, and that's just the mind, just the mindfulness process of actually letting go and expanding and experiencing, God, basically, right? I mean, if we call it, or the universe, I prefer the word the universe because I'm not religious, but I'm spiritual. So I don't like religion because of the whole situation with the, with the wars, because of most religions. But anyway, but I believe that it is to do with that being closer, that we all are God, and we all have godicles or particles of God inside us and light, and it's moving towards that, the choice of that existence rather than the other. And most people don't even realize that they're in the other.
Yeah, for me, it's all about awareness. Where, you talked about the muscle. For me, it's an awareness muscle that we're exercising, so that we become more aware, which then gives us the choice and the power of recognition to see that we've got into fight or flight mode. And then, oh, okay, choose again. And the techniques automatically take you to an expanded state of being present, out of thought. Thoughts are happening, when we're thinking, we're either experiencing the past or the future. We're never present here. We miss this moment unfolding in front of us, because we're actually not showing up for it, because part of our attention is on the thinking mind, and then we experience the reality through what the thinking mind is telling us. We're identified with all of that, so it's literally like we've got a series of filters that we experience the world through, and then you can use the ascension technique and they fall away instantly. So like it's mechanical and instant, and then it's that back and forth dance of, that's how we build the awareness muscle up, so we start to remain a sustainable experience of being present. And when you're present, for me, the experience of your body then is pure and clear. So you'll recognize the body, you'll be able to experience the body sensations, but there's no judgment about them, there's no opinion about them, there's no story about them. And so it's a moment by moment choice, like you were saying, that we're just then remaining present, and the experience of your body is different, and then it can heal. It'll constantly heal itself. We actually just need to get out of the way. For me, I've done so many things to heal myself, and I still do things, but it's, for me, recognizing that when I do something, like put a little bit of physio cream on to soften if my neck's just gotten too uncomfortable in that moment, and it's just not softening because it's just all up, a lot of stress is moving at once. But I'm aware that I'm just soothing the symptoms with that, not actually changing anything. So there's nothing wrong in that, but it's just knowing that what you're doing and what actually is going to be the outcome of it. And for me, it's then doing that, but then keep coming back with using the technique, so I can actually go beyond the whole mechanism that's making my neck, go like that. And actually, in the healing process, we can actually be healing and improving our state, but there can be times when it actually becomes tight and painful again, and you almost have to, it's like riding the wave, almost like, when you get cramp. I've been exploring this with actual cramp. I used to get a lot, in my calves when I was in bed, and I'm just like crippled, and you have to wait for it to go. But we tense against it. I now don't tense against it, and when I feel that wave coming up, I just allow it, and it just goes quite smoothly, and it doesn't hurt as much. It's not as painful. There's still an intensity there, though, because that's the thing, is like when there is that contraction, sometimes it's almost like, in the release, like when you're having a baby, there's that contraction and expand that isn't wrong or bad. And so it's starting to take the label of there's something wrong away, so you can actually just let that happen. And so that's why, and then finding like my body at the moment, my arms and legs, there's all these like tight spots, and they're starting to loosen, and it's fascinating watching it. Like, what's going to happen next?
It's amazing, and it's so beautiful to hear it, how that it's worked for you, and I'm so glad. And it's also verifying that techniques that I teach, for example, one is somatic tracking, which has been actually proven scientifically, because I'm a scientist. Actually, I have a scientific background. I'm an immunologist, and I've been studying I was in R&D for many years, and I left R&D because it was no longer serving me as a mode. I didn't want to be in the drug company pockets and be paid by them, and you know, it was just not serving me whatsoever. So I have this, but I always wanted to bridge the gap between holistic modalities, or you know, like mind body connection modalities, but with kind of like with backing of the science, or let's say having a kind of scientific clinical trial to show that these, you know, two different things work. But we don't really, I mean, it's not really for me I mean, I do 100% believe it, so it's not like I need to know that, you know, there's been a clinical trial and blah blah blah, but for some people they do. So I want to leave it to be accessible for those people who have doubt or have you know, not faithful in, like, you know, don't believe in whatever, because it's all about belief, right? So the placebo, for example, works only if you believe that it works. You know, I mean, the medicine, you know, this is what whole thing about placebo is, if the belief. So this is why different modalities work for different people. Acupuncture, homeopathy, blah blah blah, is if they believe in the system that it's working or not, right? This is really interesting. And yeah, so the somatic tracking is one thing that has been shown to, you know, to have worked on many different people, in fact to highly reduce the number of the amount of pain that person has in many cases, and in fact to eradicate it. And that is the most, you know, from what I'm hearing from you, is it's a very similar process, in that you're non-judgmentally and non-outcome you know, biased, in the sense that you don't have to change the thing, you're just observing it. So you're observing the pain, because we have a pain, we link the pain, we connect the pain with fear, and then the fear, you know, and the pain create the chronic and blah blah blah. It's a circuitry in the brain. But as soon as you decouple it and start to actually curiously look inside and see, so pain is just a big box, but in fact, inside the box of pain, there are thousands of sensations. So we always say that's just pain, but in fact, it's numbing, it's prickling, it's stabbing, it's, you know. So if you start getting into a sensation of curiosity, so what other words can I use except for pain? That is what I help people with regards to just being observing with an open mind to the actual sensations. And this is very much my work, is coming out of the brain, because this is coming out of the brain as well and coming into the body, and just being with the sensations, decoupling it from fear, because that's another thing with the chronicness, is if it's coupled with, if it's conditioned into us, that we, you know, so we give a sense of soothing and healing, of safety in our bodies at the same time. So decoupling it from fear and just having that step by step, like baby step by baby step, because it, you know, it can get overwhelming, and you know, it can be very, you know, it can just as a bad, you know, conditioning can go wrong, let's say. So you have to take it step by step and build the muscle again of, you know, awareness and of that curiosity, observation, non-judgmental state. So that's beautiful. I'm just, you know, very excited about that as well, because yeah, it really does work. And I understand that you've seen it work in different modalities, right? In different modality.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think we've just been trained to react in certain ways, to believe certain things, and you know, most of our beliefs were taken on board when we were only, you know, up to about the age of 7 years old, where we're like just sponges. And so it doesn't actually need to be true to take it on board. It just has to be repeated or happen once with an extreme amount of motion at the same time, you know, a really startling event. And then it gets downloaded into the unconscious. And then once it's in the unconscious, it's just this looping pattern that happens. And we don't even see that it's happening, you know. I mean, I've become aware of beliefs that I have through using my ascension practice that I wouldn't have even known, and sometimes they're contradictory as well, you know, like when you always get that conversation going on inside of you, I want to do this, or but you sure, you know, I'm not sure that's a good idea, you know. It's like this almost the proverbial angel and devil sitting on the shoulders having this, you know, conversation in your head, and just coming back to the recognition that you're the awareness of that conversation rather than being the thoughts themselves, because we are so fully identified with the thinking once it's in the unconscious mind, it's become us. We are then the thinker of the thoughts, whereas actually it's just this downloadable program that's trundling around in the background. We're thinking even when we're not aware we're thinking. It's like layers of an onion that you kind of strip away through becoming literally just being attentive to the mechanism of the mind. And as you see it, it goes from you being it to, it can be a little bit shocking when you first see it, a little bit alarming because you just had no idea that this was going on. But as you just watch it, however it feels, even if it feels horrible, and then just gradually,
absolutely,
you start to become aware of the context.
Exactly, and that this excitement that you feel, I totally get it as well, because it's such an unlimited source. This is, we're limitless. We really are when we have the sensation that we are not our thoughts and not our feelings, and that we are their waves, their energy, in fact, that are coming and taking over us. Like I have a 5-year-old daughter, and I explained to her that you're feeling angry, or are you feeling, I ask her, are you feeling angry? So this is the like a storm coming and coming, passing through us, and it's going to pass, and we can take some deep breaths, and it's all going to be okay. So rather than saying don't be angry, which is the usual conditioning of our angry is bad, and that creates a lot of problems with people with chronic pain, because there is suppressed emotions is actually probably one of the most important factors towards chronic pain as well. So it's a very interesting subject. I could spend hours talking to you about it. I don't know what time you have to jump off. I have to jump off around just after 1, so my time, so it's on the hour. So is there anything, so your biggest lesson from your pain, would you say, what would you say that was your biggest lesson from your pain? You kind of touched on it.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest lesson from my pain, I think, has been that we're already free, that we always have a choice. And it's just learning how to make that choice, how you get to that place where you have the freedom to choose to experience life purely and clearly. And then it actually doesn't matter what's going on in the body, but then the body is happier, more free and easy itself too. So it's like sometimes you're just surrendering to what is, and nothing changes for a while. So it's never about getting rid of something for me, and so that's freeing in and of itself. So I still have the symphysis pubis condition dysfunction, and I don't need it to go now, which probably means it will go at some point, because I'm not battling with it anymore. And so for me, that's freedom too, not needing to battle, not needing to change anything to experience peace. There's peace now, and it's just, are you aware enough to experience it? And that's why the title of my book is Peace or Pain. So my moment choice is all peace is always available to us. Pain is always possible. And like if we're cutting some vegetables up and we cut our finger, we kind of want to feel pain, so we stop cutting and don't cut a finger off. So it's a useful mechanism. But and I had that experience recently with chopping up vegetables. Normally the minute you see blood or that you cut yourself, it starts hurting, and then you go and put your plaster on. The last time I did that, I just went, oh, there was no story. Oh, you silly thing, you weren't paying attention. All of that just wasn't there this time. And it didn't actually hurt. I was looking at it going, it's not actually hurting. Like I can feel a sensation there, but there's no pain. But I think I still need to put a plaster on. So I went and put the plaster on, and I went back, and normally the pain would subside once you put the plaster on. You take the air element out of it, and it's dealt with now. So you carry on and it goes. But this was like, I was aware throughout the whole of it. I saw it, and that flash of pain didn't come. So again, I'm continually finding these discoveries about any symptom I have. It might not even be painful. It could be asthma, for example. It's not necessarily painful. It's debilitating, but it's not. It doesn't hurt. And what happens with that when you actually recognize the resistance and stop?
Absolutely. Yeah, totally. It's there was a very interesting example when in one of Joe Dispenza's books, actually, when I was reading it, that a worker jumped on was working in a factory or in some kind of construction site, and a huge nail pierced the bottom of his working boot all the way through to, you know, came out the top of his shoe, and he was in, you know, agony, and they rushed him to the hospital, and they were just like, oh my God, this giant nail, 9-inch nail just pierced my whole foot. And he was, you know, and they took him to the hospital. They took out off his boot, and they realized the nail had gone through his toe, and in fact there was no blood, no problem, but his mind saw the nail going through and assumed and created the pain, literally created the pain in his brain, that he must be having pain because it's gone through his foot. And yet he, you know, when they took off his boot, there was no, you know, he'd gone straight through the toe, so he was very lucky. But that's an illustration of how easy it is we can create the pain in our brain, and I use that as an illustration to my clients to help them realize that we are absolutely perpetuating our chronic pain, and, you know, through our brain, through our, you know, and I help to just deconstruct that, and how to, you know, with mind, body, elements, physical, mental and emotional, you know, habits, actually, because they all are habits. We are, you know, we get habitually associated with our disease as well, dis-ease, and also our illnesses, and also our conditions. So for example, being called, I have fibromyalgia, is automatically blueprinting the tomorrow on you, by associating with this, you know, with your disease. And it's not even a disease. I don't even know what it is, but I'm just saying, as a kind of, you know, I have it, gives us this feeling of. So I wanted to suggest also with your asthma and your, you know, the problem or the issue that the condition that you say that you have, to be, you know, I know that you know this, but I'm just bringing it. I have to, you know, I heard you say it, so I have to bring it in. That, you know,
I'm always open to hear.
Yeah,
always
just by using the words I have something, it's similar to I am something. So our, you know, subconscious mind literally, you know, makes it for the tomorrow. So it's very interesting. So having, using the words until now, or using the words, you know, I had, or, you know, so what I mean, immediately helps to decouple that from our existence. And so we can really move forward with an opportunity that, you know, I'm saying this because you're full of possibilities and limitless. We all are. And your asthma is something that can be healed as well through this mind-body connection work. So I really would like to, you know, just put the seed there, and you know, give you the possibility. And also how the structure of our spine is can be massively affected by our brains and our thoughts patterns. So that's another possibility for you as well, that the healing definitely can happen and is happening, exactly if we manage to take our, you know, beliefs and in fact beliefs from the system as well. Because, for example, people who have herniated discs, this is a physical structural problem, and this is one of the main problems with people that I have who come to me with TMS being the kind of John Sarno's word for the mind-body connection, mind-body syndrome, which is basically that we are, you know, created in our brain, the psychosomatic or whatever else how else you want to call it. But if you actually look at the structure of some very healthy participants, this came out recently, I think it was 2013, a clinical review on who has bulging discs and degenerative diseases. There are many, you know, there's numbers on for increasing in age for people who have these problems but have no symptoms, have no pain whatsoever. So this was very, very real, you know, kind of insightful for the people who are the doctors who are giving this, you know, giving them MRI and then saying, oh, your herniated disc is causing your pain, or your, you know. So this was very interesting, and I bring it very often to the discussion, because yeah, we have these this structural dysfunctions or problems in our body, but they're not necessarily, again, you're in a special case, but just having the option, the openness to think that it's possible to have the dysfunction or the difference in our structure, the structural problem, but without the pain, or without, which is what you're having, right? So you have the structural problem still, but and yet you don't have the pain. So it's very interesting how we can decouple all of that together, and that's mind retraining the brain, right? Awesome.
Yeah. At the moment, I'm actually witnessing that deconstruct. Like I say, I still have it because that actually helps it make sense for others. But a while ago, I recognized that I held tension in my left thigh. And as that's falling away, the right hip is improved. And it's almost just like I'm pulling my joint apart simply because there's tension in my leg. So in a way, yes, I still am experiencing certain symptoms from it, even though they're not painful. But for me, it's almost like there's not even a conditioned symphysis pubis dysfunction. Like the whole idea of that has deconstructed. And so I'm watching the body move away from that. And for me, a lot of, you touched on it as well, is fear. There was so much fear for me. I've had so many times when my legs would give way again, and it would be like a flare up of conditions, we often call it.
Yeah.
For me, the flare up is an invitation to step beyond it, and in the flare up actually is the mechanism for you to see more clearly and to allow the healing that wants to happen. And so I think I love what you're doing. I think it's amazing that you're helping people in this way. And I think for me, the truth is very simple. And so we've come to the truth in a different way, and we maybe have different ways, yet they're the same in a way. So I would love to I would love to team up and do whatever we want to. Really.
Fantastic. I mean, with the wisdom, that's why I call my program The Wisdom of Pain, the healing process, because it's really about understanding that this pain has come to us because we need to see something bigger, and we need to grow, and we need to grow. And this can be, for people who are in chronic pain, incredibly frustrating, because they're just like, but I just want to get rid of it, I don't care what the message is, or but I'm just like, well, the body is giving us a strong signal, and this signal is like, it's chronic, it's perpetuated by our cycles in our brain and our emotional, the fear and all the rest of it. But there is a strong signal there, and that strong signal, warning signal, is telling us something that we need to learn. And I also bring in the parts work. I don't know if you've heard about parts work, which is basically that creating the subconscious mind creates the pain, actually, the dysfunction. In fact, the structural problems can create structural problems and illnesses because it wants to avoid other people, the individual, feeling strong emotions. So there is often a suppression of strong emotions, like they're not allowed to feel anger, they're not allowed to feel sadness, they have some back childhood issues that have caused them to, or beliefs basically, that they're not allowed to feel these feelings, or it's not, and a good person doesn't feel anger or whatever. So then what happens is the subconscious mind creates this like a kind of decoy in a way so that the person doesn't feel these strong built-in push down emotions. And this is very, very interesting when you start to kind of you talked about an onion, which is really great analogy. I usually use the word, the kind of like the head of a garlic, because we have parts in us that are all kind of rotating and working together. And I use, like, in this idea, this analogy of this, it's based on other people's work, of parts work and psychologists' work. It's very, very interesting that these parts have guardians. Like, there's a part of us that has always a good intention, is to protect us. but these parts have negative behaviors. For example, the part that, you know, avoids something is addiction, wants to eat or drink or smoke or, you know, sex or whatever, to avoid the feeling. And then we have guardians that protect those parts from being discovered or pushed, you know, keep them pushed down. And there is all a system. It's I don't know if you've heard of it. I'm just telling you this because I think it's very fascinating. I think you might be interested in it as well. This is called internal family systems, that we're all basically we're a system of all these pressures and pushes and pulls and things working inside of us. And pain is a part. So if you can identify it as a wounded inside part of us that's been pushed down and being kept in that position by guardians to stop, you know, stop the explosion of an emotion or emotions that have been pushed down for so long and put into our kind of closet of, you know, they're not acceptable. In fact, it's protecting us from, so that we can function and be functioning in our society, right? So it's really, really interesting when you start to see it like that, because then you start having a completely different relationship with that part. And some of my clients have been, you know, the dialogue, for example, they have a pain in their shoulder, chronic pain in their shoulder, and they've been dialoguing with that shoulder as a part of, you know, to how to protect it, how, you know, how it's been protecting her all of this time. And it's a very loving, gentle discussion that has helped her, actually has reduced the pain, but has helped her understand that it's not to try and, you know, I just want you to go, you know. It's kind of like, I'm part of you, that I've been here for so long and you've never given me attention. So identifying the need of that part, and then trying to find another role for that part in the system of, you know, our family system, let's say. So I find that analogy and that kind of work really helpful, especially in this work with TMS, because it's often a part of us that's been there, that's been wanting to be heard for so long, and has been shouting for so long and never been looked at in this way, you know.
Yeah, I've recognise that in a similar way, you know. And you say a part of us, but it's almost like it's been apart from us, you know. It's like, just because we have, our body feels like it's all together, we see it in one, it's almost like we're fragmented. And so Absolutely. These all parts are separate. It's almost like they're out in the cold and banging on, you know, and pain is banging on the front door, and it's going to get louder and louder until you answer the door and let that part in, so take its rightful place, and then it becomes a blessing and a gift rather than a trauma and a pain.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
And the body operates differently, doesn't it? So yeah, well, we are coming to the end of the hour, aren't we? So
yeah, is there anything? Yeah, we could talk all day, I know. Is there anything that you would, the one question I would really like to ask before we finish is there, when you were in that chronic pain, if you can just go back to that moment when you were in such deep chronic pain before your transformational experience, how would you have been like, because I'm trying to get in, I've obviously got my experience, but I'm trying to help more people. It's very helpful getting into the state of mind, what support you would have liked during that time. What, you know, can you think of anything that you would have liked during that time to support you, to have supported you to, you know, transform faster? Or I know that it's a bit of a funny question, because transformation can't be speeded up. It has to happen in its own time, right? But, you know, I'm a true believer in, I faith in the transformational process has to happen you're in exactly the right time and exactly the right place, you know, for this transformational journey. But, you know, if there was something that you could have had in support over that time, what would it have been?
For me, it would have been being listened to, you know. And I know this actually simply by listening to people who are in pain, just listening to them, not judging them, not seeing them as a victim, but simply just listening to them for the sake of hearing exactly how they feel right now, without any need to fix or change that, make it any different than it is right now, just to be heard so fully in that moment. Healing happens within that and gentleness happens within that. And so for me, yeah, to have been heard, you know, everybody around me cared and wanted me better, but they saw me as a, you know, there was something wrong with me. So to just be heard without that label of there being something wrong with me would have been, yeah, that's what I would have loved to have had.
Thank you. That's brilliant. I totally agree as well. It's very, very important, and also very important because I'm, you know, as a holistic life coach, I'm offering, you know, giving them the belief that they can do it, you know, that there's a you know, there's a possibility for them, at the same time as holding the space for them to just be what, you know, what is right now at this moment, that they're in serious pain and they don't know, you know, they have no clue on how they can get out of it, right? So holding those two vessels, let's say, of holding the space for you know, healing, a possibility of healing, but also for the what is right now at the same time, you know, it's kind of, it's a nice juggling moment.
Yeah, for me, we just have to land in this moment. Like, to make change, you actually have to acknowledge exactly how everything is right now. You can't go forward until you've done that. And I think that's where we often trip ourselves with chronic pain, is we want to go to healed. We want to cure ourselves. We want it to be different. And like, you've got to land in this moment first, so you have that foundation. You're not battling anything, and then that natural change will happen by itself. People that you need, the support you need, the mechanisms, the guidance, the opportunities, the love, just being listened to, all comes from you just actually acknowledging how it is for you right now. It's the first most important step, and not resisting the resistance. We've been trained our entire lives to think, to resist. You know, it's just like, pat yourself on the back, you're doing a really good job with the training you've been given. And now the invitation is, you know, do you want it to be different? And yeah, there's new habits you can cultivate to create an entirely different experience.
Beautiful. Yeah, I agree. And it's all about changing the deconstructing and changing our habits to how we have been, you know, living until now. Because for me, it's about, I don't even like the word habit. I prefer the word ritual, because it's really, we are creatures of habit, and we need to create, you know, until now, the actions that we've been taking daily have created the outcomes. So if we can change the actions that we take daily by change, and that's holistically, so mind, body, spirits, you know, practices or whatever, then, so I'm very, very, with my coaching practice, I'm very much about changing the core habits so that people can actually, you know, grow and learn. And that's, you know, part of the process as well. So yeah, what are the support change? So the last question, we actually went through most of them, but without having any base structure or anything. But I also prefer it like that, because then we have the, you know, the freeness. Just you know, what would be your like message to pain sufferers and survivors to keep them, and, you know, get them thriving and to help them to transform in this process? What would you like to say to them?
Pain is not what you think it is. It's not what you think it is. And when you start to explore what it really is through experience, not just through, you know, theoretical understanding, then that's when the biggest changes happen. And pain is a gift. For me, I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't change all the pain I've been in over the years, because I wouldn't be where I am now. I wouldn't be where I am now. So for me, it's like, welcome that pain in, and then see what happens. Work with the hand you've been dealt. You know, we're all dealt cards in life, and if we work with the hand we've been dealt, there's a purpose lurking behind it that can transform your life into one of magic and wonder. And you know, we don't have to stay in pain. That secondary pain of suffering is not necessary at all. And I know how to help people recognize that, and you know how to help people recognize that, and that's a gift. And that's what I want everyone to know, that it's possible. Freedom is possible. Peace with pain is possible.
Peace with pain,
And
exactly.
actually, then where does the pain go? It's like when you turn the light on, where does the dark go? It's only there when the light is off. And it's the same.
Perception, yeah.
But when we're present, when we're fully aware and alert, then where does pain go? It's gone. We might still have a physical body sensation, we might have a condition, but like you said, like taking the label of I have a certain condition off, you know,